Good day guys, Austin here, and in this video today we're going to be looking at PCs and emulation. So basically what we're going to be doing is looking at building a actual PC which can emulate anything we can throw at it. Now when I'm talking about emulation, it's a completely different kettle of fish from your normal PC gaming. So that's why we have to put a little more detail into the parts that we're actually picking. I mean, anybody can throw all kinds of money at a build, but unless we're actually using the parts that's in it, it's a bit of a waste of money. So that's what we're going to be looking at in today's video. Okay then, so you're into the emulator scene and you would like a computer to go along with it. Now, there are many places out there that you can go and just buy a computer off the shelf, to be honest. Even if you was to use an old computer you found lying around the house or off a friend or something like that, you could probably get away with emulating probably, I don't know, 80% of all the emulated games that you could play out there. Because, to be honest, that's the whole reason why they're emulated, the older systems. So they're not very resource intensive. So you can get away with pretty low end stuff. The problem is that, obviously, once you start doing this kind of thing, and you begin to, well, catch the bug, you hunger bigger systems, you hunger more games, and that's when your resources start to step up a little bit and you start the need for a bit of a more beefy computer to be able to play them, well, as intended, or in some case even upscale and play them as better intended than they were in the first place. And, well, that's why I'm here. That is why today we're going to actually look at a build that can do that. However, without throwing the bank balance at it. Because let's face it guys, anybody with thousands of pounds can just walk into a shop and buy, I don't know, an i7 with the latest GPU, solid state drives, all that kind of good stuff, and you can probably get it working. However, in some cases, you may actually be hindering yourself by doing so. So that's what we're going to look into detail today. What you need to consider is what you're going to be actually emulating on your PC. Now, like I said, you can go lower end and you can go more retro, and you can probably get away with any old PC that you can probably find in the loft, to be honest. But what I want to show you today is a PC that can run anything, any emulator that's out there that can run. You know, don't get me wrong, emulation is that advanced that everything is flawless. I want to show you a PC which can run every emulator that is running, and run it to a spec where it's actually playable as intended by the makers of the emulators. Now, the first things that you need to consider is the actual draws upon your PC. First one being, if you were going to do this from a PC gaming standpoint, then probably the main part that you would be considering in your PC build, and probably the most expensive part, would be the GPU, because modern PC games utilize the GPU more than the CPU. It's just the way they're put together. People expect and demand a hell of a lot more on the processes of graphics. Now, when it comes to emulation, it's a completely different kettle of fish. The beast has changed. The beast has turned from GPU to CPU, because what the emulators expect is a hell of a lot more beef and processing power to actually emulate the working system of the computer you're trying to run. So you can probably get away with a lower end GPU and a more selective CPU to use, because I wouldn't say that we should go out there and start purchasing our i7s because they are the best CPUs that you can buy. Completely irrelevant, guys, and that's where most pitfalls happen with these guys selling them online and on YouTube and things like that, where they offer you the complete PC build from your emulation experience and stuff. They don't actually consider what is actually needed for the emulators. I mean, like I said, you can go out there and you can buy the i7 and you will probably get away with a hell of a lot of stuff, but you first off will be wasting so much money buying the i7, because emulators don't use the power of an i7. They don't know how to multi-thread. In 99.9% of the cases, they don't even know how to use more than one core. So buying an i7 is completely overkill for something like this. Now, don't get me wrong, we need to box clever. I know that you guys are going to be playing PC games as well as emulating, so what we need to do is find that sweet spot, the place between budget, sensibility and gaming experience, because that's what we're here for. At the end of the day, we want to get all our games running, but we don't want to be stupid about it. So what I'm going to try and do, considering all these factors, is show you the best bang for buck computer that I can recommend to put together for this kind of experience. And then also, I know that all of you aren't made of money, and even my budget build may be a bit too extreme for anybody who just wants to get into this on a more casual setup. So then I'm going to be showing you what other steps you can take to, I don't know, shave even more pounds off the total budget of building something like this. So without further ado, then let's actually start looking at some of these parts. Okay then, so there are loads, billions, godzillions of places on the old Tinternet where you can purchase parts for building your PCs, and we'll be looking a bit more into detail and, I don't know, drawing some good points and bad points from various sites in actually purchasing parts. But there are also ones put together to aid you in the process of making more complete builds. One of the best ones for that is PCPartPicker. Now, the link is in the description down below. If you follow that, you will end up at a site similar, if not identical, to this one. Now, PCPartPicker basically, it draws on 90% of all the resources which sell parts online, and this is national as well. It actually works out which companies ship and sell to whatever various countries you come from. So today I'm going to be looking at the United Kingdom. You may have more features in whatever country you come from. I'm guessing that probably the United States has the most. UK probably not too bad, to be honest, because our shipping isn't too bad, but obviously worldwide I cannot tell you that much. But the parts that we're picking can be sourced from various other outlets. I'm just using this as an example to give you a better idea and understanding of how easy this process can be, and give you an idea of the parts which you need to start considering and why. Okay, and so first thing to do then is choose whatever country you're in at the top right hand corner. It does this automatically most of the time, however you may need to do that yourself just to make sure you're running properly. Next thing to do then is actually start building your actual PC. Now don't get me wrong, you're not going into any contractual agreement at this point, you know. What I'm going to do now is show you the parts that you can set. For example, if you can source these parts cheaper elsewhere, then feel free. This is just a good guide to go in through to actually think about all the parts that is needed, give you an idea of what fits in where, i.e. if any components have any compatibility issues working in conjunction with you, whether it be the actual slot sockets, cross-platform, all that kind of stuff. So this gives you a general good idea to go off, and by clicking on this link here at the top left hand corner of this tab will bring you to a screen similar to this, the system build, somewhere that we can actually get stuck in and start putting our system piece by piece together. Piece by piece. Okay then, so the first thing that we need to do, as I talked about, the core of our emulation PC will be the CPU. Now, Intel is much more stable when it comes to emulation. Now, yes, you can go out there and you can buy AMD chips or ATI chips, whatever you call them now. You can buy them and they are a fraction normally of the price of a Intel chip. And the problem is that the performance, especially in terms of emulation, is a fraction of that of its counterpart. Now, many emulators even come with actual emulating issues when it comes to using AMD chips. I'm not saying that's with every emulator, I'm not saying that's with every program, but from my experience, what I'm trying to put over to you guys, you will get a lot more compatibility, a lot more stability if you go for an Intel chip. And that's me. I'm not an Intel fanboy because I would much rather spend on something cheaper, but it's just the facts of this scene, guys. You are going to get a lot more fun from an Intel chip than you are from an AMD chip. Spending that a little bit more now will get you a lot more performance, and I will try and knock off as much money as I can by showing you ways around stuff. So first off then, we're going to be going for an Intel chip. Now when I say Intel, what we need to be looking at is, like I said, the actual emulators, and the biggest draw, the biggest one draw out there, like I said, also is the PCSX2. Now its main draw is the processor itself. In fact, it needs 4+ gigahertz running. So if we're going to be using that as our, I don't know, minimum spec, then that rules a hell of a lot of processors out. I mean, we're going to have to go for a modern generation Intel chip, in terms of, we're not going to get away with a Pentium, are we? I mean, I know that you could probably get them quite far overclocked, especially like the Q6600s and things like that. I know the old generation, you probably struggle to buy one, especially off the shop shelf nowadays. But we have to think wisely about what we're going to be going for. So i3s ruled out straight away because they don't overclock, so you can't get over the 4 gigahertz. You can turn the turbo on, which gets you close, but not close enough, and the performance will hit in playing most games. If you want to play safe, then we are going as 4 gigahertz for the threshold. So that then rules us into, first off, the i5. Yes, they don't come that as standard, but you can overclock no problem. And to be honest, unless you get the locked version, you will end up overclocking and get over there no problem whatsoever. Obviously i7's hell of a lot of performance. You can get there no problem, and again, if you get the unlocked version, if they're not even that as standard, you can get 4 gigahertz over without any issues whatsoever. But the price range on these guys is silly, and you are wasting it, because like we talked about, cores aren't utilized in these chips, so we can knock cores off, which hopefully can knock price off. So the best one which utilizes it in that price range is the G3258. Now some of you may have heard me talking about this before. The reason why this is so good is it's cheapest chips. First off, that's one big massive tick in the box. Second tick in the box is the fact that it can be overclocked with ease, and when I say with ease, I mean that because its power consumption, its heat ratio and all that kind of stuff is all very low. So when you're overclocking this bad boy, it's done with ease. In fact, I can overclock my G258, and I'm not saying every one of them is exactly the same, but I can overclock mine no problem to 4.3 gigahertz on a stock cooler. That's actually the standard cooler which comes shipped with the CPU when you buy it in the box. So we're already saving money at that point. So let's actually go in there then and pick it. So the way we go about this is, on this website, you obviously go into the CPU section here, choose your CPU, telling you to suck eggs a little bit. Now you'll be greeted with a list similar, if not identical to this one, depending on what country you are from. Will dictate, first of all, the price differences. Obviously it's all about the same price, but the exchange rate will be different. Obviously I'm using UK at this moment in time, so my price is in UK sterling. Okay then, so we're going for the 3258. As you can see, there is an abundance of CPUs that you can choose from all kinds of makes to all kinds of standards. We already talked about the 3258, so what we can do, in fact I was going to search it, but I've just spotted it with the keenness of my eye. As you can see at this point then, we've got the stats of our, well, CPU. So this list here lists all the CPUs. This shows you the speed as stock, number of cores that come with it, and, well, basically how much power it's going to be using, the ratings. So this is a good thing about this website. You can actually go in there and you can listen to other people's reviews regards to this product. And obviously the main one and the factor to consider in our case is the price. So as you can see here, you've got a G3258. Now, as I talked about, this can overclock no problem whatsoever. Well, mine goes to 4.3. Every CPU is different, but I'd say the sweet spot for this is 4.3 gigahertz, and I can do that as like I talked about with the stock cooler. So even though it says 3.2 here, it can be overclocked, and it virtually uses no power whatsoever to get to that in terms of impact on top of its normal ratio. So it's a very sweet CPU. As you can see here, you compare it to the 490,
and 3 times the difference, but you are getting more cores. Obviously you're getting a lot more performance, but in terms of emulation you are not. You are getting hardly any performance whatsoever. So yeah, something to consider. Now the G3258 is overclocked to standard. Sorry, not overclocked, but it is overclock compatible as standard, so you don't need to worry about that kind of thing. So all we need to do then to add it to our list is just click add. And there we go, it's all done. Basically we've got our CPU and we've already got our stock cooler along with it. Obviously if you have more money and you want to play a bit more safer, or even if you want to take it that much further with the overclocking, you know, then you can start looking at the CPU cooler below here and choose one to go along with it. The great thing about this site is that each time you make a decision, it will impact the results for each one of these that you choose. Because obviously if I choose a CPU here, an actual chip, it's got a specific socket type, so that will obviously make an impact with all the motherboards that I can choose from as I work my way down the list. So it actually is clever, this website, in the way it's put to you, not only in terms of what products are available, but the way you can actually put all this together without putting that much thought or research into it. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't use this as gospel. I would still research once you've chosen all your parts, but today I'm going to be choosing proven parts for me, ones that I have used on several occasions and have worked without any issues whatsoever. So again, I don't need a cooler at this point because I want to be saving money. If I did have extra money, I probably would buy a cooler for this build just for peace of mind, if anything. Motherboard then. What we want to be looking at here is, first off, something that is overclockable. So we know our chip is overclockable, but not all motherboards are, first off, are overclock enabled, but second of all, don't utilize it very well. In other words, it's a pain in the ass for me to overclock, and I'm going to run into issues more than likely down the line. So I want that one that's easy and stable to overclock, but I also want to be cheap. You know, all these factors to take into consideration. So first off, my first factor is price. I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to search by price, so starting from the lowest first. Now there are ones down here that I probably may take a go on, but I'm going to go on ones that have been tried and trusted by me. They are a little bit more expensive, however they are still within the budget range. Now I know that the Asus H81M is an overclockable board. If you were to read reviews on this online and stuff, they may be a little outdated. When they first came out, they were not overclockable. Basically the BIOS had that blanked out and you couldn't overclock your chips. They made new BIOS editions and it got updated, and basically they enabled that for this chip. So if you are going to read reviews on that, bear that in mind. The BIOS has been updated and you are now able to overclock. In fact, it's very easy to overclock. It's a case of 3 clicks and it will take you less than 2 minutes to do. Trust me, it really is that simple with this. So yeah, that is what we're going to be going for then. I'm going to be going for the Asus H81M. And as you can see, it's at a lovely price of 40 UK pounds sterling. It's an extra tenner on top of these, but I don't want to give you bad information, so I'm going to be using ones that I've utilised myself and have proven track history with. So I'm going to add that to the board. And if it was to actually, as we looked at it, it was the LGA the LGA 1150 was the socket type, and there we go, it both matches, so it is doing its job as in the website itself. Next thing then, memory. Now the one drawback with this motherboard and this CPU combination is, I believe, unless they've updated it, you couldn't use more than, it does utilize DDR3 RAM, however you couldn't go more than 3300 in the speed. So as we go in here, you've got your DDR3s. Obviously these are all the same socket types because the website works it out for you. We're going to be going for price. Now I know that these are good, don't get me wrong, and I would quite utilize these without any doubt, but what we want to be going for is a sweet spot of, you can probably get away with 4 gigs in emulation, but what I want to do is make this also a gaming PC, so I can play pretty high-end games without any issues whatsoever. When we start to do that, then we're going to be using more RAM. As modern day games are released, they are utilizing more RAM, so I would get a bit more future compatibility on this, and I would go for actually the 8 gigabytes, because to be honest, they're not that more expensive compared to what you're getting for the price. Again, bang to book, guys, we're looking for. So I want to be going for 8 gigabytes. I also want to be using a trusted name. Now, Corsair, Kingston, G-Skill, Crucial, in fact, they're all pretty much very high-end names. But what I want to be looking for is a sweet spot between actual price and what I'm going to be getting. Now here, as you can see, the Kingston, I like Kingston, I like HyperX, Blue Fury, basically the colour that goes along with these is basically the standard of what that RAM is at. I'm going for Blue Fury because although it is probably faster than what I need, bang for buck ratio, 8 gigs for that price, unbelievable. So I'm going to be adding that. So now what we've got is a dual core processor, we've got ourselves a motherboard, we've now added RAM, and as we look down the bottom here, we're only getting up to 121 quid. That's less than the complete price of a processor, and we've already built half the PC. Okay, so the next drawer that we're going to be looking at is storage. Jesus wept. This is where you need to start thinking about, guys, saving your pennies. Now, I'm going to show you storage, and basically we're going to be going for nothing special whatsoever. I'm probably going to be choosing the cheapest one available, because this is where you want to be saving your money, guys. Have a look for deals that are online. If you want to buy brand new storage, and I probably would recommend that, to be honest, because using used storage will probably throw up errors. When you start building your ROM collections and your games and things like that, you want things to be reliable, especially in terms of backup and storage. However, if you've got a computer which you are already using but you don't think it's up to scratch, or you've got old ones lying around or something like that, utilize parts from within it. One of the good ones that you can bring from an old computer is actually the storage. So if you've got a hard drive lying around, utilize it, save money in that way. But we're going to be probably choosing the cheapest one available. So as you can see, we've got solid state drives, and Jesus Christ, solid state drives are now cheap as chips. We're going for a Kingston solid state drive, 128 gigs for 35 quid. That's useful in itself. If I was you, I would, if you've got the money, buy a solid state drive just for your operating system, because it does speed up your computer no end. Boot times in seconds. So if you got the money, I would buy. If not, I would just get a cheap, well, good hard drive. So as you can see, Western Digital, 40 quid for a terabyte. You cannot complain. Bang for buck again. So I'm going to be adding that because it's cheap as chips, to be honest. And that gives us a terabyte to play with. You are going to need a hell of a lot more than that if you start adding your ROM collections and things like that. But it's a good starting spot to get yourself set up with this system. Again, if you've got the money, buy, I think the sweet spot now is about 4 or 5 terabytes with a hard drive. If you've got the money, also buy a solid state also to go along with it. In fact, I think in my local area at this moment in time, it's cheaper for me to buy a, what's it called? A 5 terabyte a 5 terabyte hard drive, which is external, than it is to buy a 5 terabyte internal, which is silly because it's just extra stuff added onto it. So what I do is I buy a external one, I rip out all the packaging, and I use it internally in my computer. Again, you're cheating the system, you're trying to find the cheapest way to go about things in this kind of scene. But of course, if you've got no money issues whatsoever, then you don't have to consider this kind of stuff. Just buy bang for buck, guys. Okay then, so that's enough about the storage. Everybody knows about hard drives. If you've got the money, buy solid state. That's all I can say. Okay then, video card. This is where you are going to be saving a hell of a lot of money. But like I said, I'm going to be utilizing this as a, well, a gaming PC as well as an emulation PC, because I want all-round stuff. Because you know, if you're going to be setting up an arcade cabinet or something like that that you want to be putting this into, which we are going to be putting this into, by the way, guys, then I want to be playing some modern fighters along with that. I mean, Street Fighter 4, all the Street Fighters, in fact, but Street Fighter 4, you know, it's not that very resource intensive. However, the new one's just about to be released, Street Fighter 5, and I want something that is compatible with that. When you're playing Injustice of Gods, the fighting game, basically that is one hell of a system hog, especially in terms of CPU and in terms of your hard drive. Mortal Kombat X, all that kind of good stuff, they all utilize your graphics card, so you are going to need a good baseline of it. Now again, best bang for buck, both for future proofing and for functionality, performance and price, for me is the 750 Ti. So as you can see, the way the video cards are put about is you've got this bit that's written down here, which is basically the a massive unpronounceable way of writing it. What you want to be looking at when you're looking at the GPU is this, the chipset. Now again, ATI are a lot cheaper than Nvidia when it comes to video cards. The problem is, again, when it comes to emulation, you may have graphical glitches, issues when it comes to those cards from the ETI arena. Basically, they're a lot more compatible and a lot more stable in terms of emulation when you go for the Nvidia side of it all, guys. So I'm going to be showing you that, basically the Nvidia side of graphics cards. Again, it's up to you guys. If you want if you want to go cheaper, if you want to go ATI, or if you want to go get a lower end, you go for it, guys. You know, I can't judge you on what you're buying. All I can do is advise you the kind of things that you want to be looking at. So in this case, I'm going to be going for a 750 Nvidia, and I want to go for the cheapest price. So as you can see there, the cheapest one out there is the Palette G4 750 Ti, and that's 84 quid. That's a hell of a lot of budget, and like I said, you can go cheaper. If you were to go generations down, which you would start saving money, because obviously this isn't the latest generation, but it's still a modern-ish card. So if I was to go down on here and go for the 650, then you're not going to be saving that much money, but you're only getting a 2 GB memory, sorry, a 1 GB memory compared to the 2 GB Ti. And if you look at the 650 Ti compared to the 750 Ti, hell of a lot of price difference, guys. So the best bang for buck that I can see out there, while still keeping all the functionality, is the 750 Ti with the 2 GB memory. It's an awesome card. And the only issue we would have with our system at this moment in time playing modern games is that our G3258 is obviously only dual core, but to be honest, not that much of an impact, because not many games, well, they're all GPU intensive, and we've just bought a good GPU to go with our system. The only one that utilizes the CPU to its full potential in modern games, well, off the top of my head, is Grand Theft Auto 5, because that requires hyper threading, and well, it's a very resource intensive game. But you can get around that just by knocking a few of the graphical bars down, and you can still get it playable. But to be honest, when you consider that most of you guys are either going to be playing this in terms of a multiplayer local arcade games and all that kind of stuff, or actually inside an arcade itself, Grand Theft Auto 5 isn't that much of a knock. And like I said, you can still play it, you just got to do a little bit more tweaking. But yeah, as you can see, we're starting to build a good little computer here, and we're still on a very short budget. I mean, if I was to come back out of here now, we have spent £244 UK sterling. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is on that, but we're starting to piece together a very compatible, a very budgeted PC. And to be honest, if you was to buy an i7, then you would be spending more than that, and we've more or less just built a PC and put it together for the same price of that. So again, guys, you got to think sensible when you're pricing and choosing your parts. Okay, let's crack on.
Next things that we need to consider are obviously some things that are completely optional to you. I mean, if you're going to put this inside an arcade cabinet, then you don't even need a case at the end of the day. And if you're on a budget, then to be honest, you're probably best off looking elsewhere. You know, the cheapest case on here at this moment in time is 20 quid. For me in the UK, I could probably go on Amazon, or I could probably go on eBay and buy one even cheaper than that. I could even utilize one of my older cases out of the shed or something. In fact, I could even just utilize this on a workbench and not even put it in a case if I wanted to save money. These are things that you need to consider, guys, if you want to be shaving pounds off your build. Cases aren't that important, as long as obviously the parts fit inside the case first off, and second of all, if you are going to be doing a little bit of overclocking, you need one with good ventilation, whether that be in holes or whatever. You don't have to go for the full-on gaming rig experience, because to be honest, all as they are is a few extra fans with a bit more ventilation. You gotta get that anyway if you choose wisely with your case, so just consider that yourself. You can still get a very good gaming case for a fraction of the price, and again, utilizing old cases, no problem whatsoever. Okay, next thing then is let's go back to the main screen. Case, and we're not going to go on that one to be honest, because we don't need a case for this. Power supply. This is the only thing now left that you shouldn't have as standard if you were starting from scratch to actually make this work. So there are many different aspects that you need to take into consideration here. First off, let's go back here a second, coming in and out. If you was to look at the top here, you've got this little electricity symbol, and at this moment in time it says 202. That's 202 watts. That's the expected power pull that everything that we've chosen here is going to be pulling on a PSU. So when we need to start looking for PSUs, we need to give enough ceiling or enough room in our choice to actually power the computer. As we've talked about, this website is pretty clever and it will only show us ones that are compatible, but still we need a bit of headspace in there to give us that peace of mind that it's going to run without any problems. Computers do spike every now and again, depending also on the quality products, especially with PSUs. You need one that's going to be reliable to actually give you that power, because if you go for these lower end, cheaper budget PSUs, they aren't actually what is advertised on the tin. So take that into consideration. So at this moment in time, we're going to be running on 202 watts. However, also consider that we're going to be overclocking our CPU, so that's going to have a bit more of a draw. Luckily, the G258 Anniversary Edition Intel Pentium is very it's been developed very well to draw as less power as possible. It's also very compatible with heating because it doesn't give off much heat. The clever thing about our video card that we just chosen, the 750 Ti, also doesn't use any external power, so it runs only off the motherboard, unlike many, especially with its capabilities. So again, we're saving on power there. So when we're choosing our power, we need one with a good brand with a little bit of ceiling. Let's have a look what it gives us for our choice. A good one for me then is a Corsair. As we can see there, we've got a Corsair 600M. M means that it's modular in the Corsair series. The first two letters at the front means what kind of model we're looking at. I think the CX is the bronze model. So have a little look into this. Let's zoom in a little bit. I can't see a thing on this. Yeah, as you can see, efficiency bronze. Basically, the efficiency gives us, you know, the kind of draw it's going to give. Well, the reliability from its power to watt ratio kind of thing. Something that you don't really need to consider, but you need to consider as given this the most reliable environment for our computer to get what it needs. Because like I said, we are going to be going for budget, but we want this to be reliable. We want this to last for a long time. We also don't want to endanger our other parts by choosing a crap power supply at this point, because it may just
ruin our entire day and ruin our entire build. So if I was you, I would future-proof yourself and use a good power supply. My main build that I use, I mean, I've got about 6 builds at this moment in time, but my main one uses a power supply which is over, I don't know, it must be coming up to 5-6 years old now, if not more. In fact, it's probably touching the 10 range, thinking about it now. But I chose that wisely years ago. I ended up spending over the normal budget. I mean, at that time, I think it was £100. But that's for basically 800 watt. But 800 watt has served me no problem whatsoever, because I know that I can throw that into more or less any build that I build, and because it's a good make, I'm confident that it will never fail me. It's never even given me a stutter. I've never failed in its confidence whatsoever. So choosing the right power supply now could not only future-proof you, give you confidence that your build's going to actually survive, but also you could utilize it in future builds in many years to come. So yeah, I mean, there are many makes out there, and if you was to again go on Amazon or eBay or something like that, you would see you would see a load of budget makes. In fact, sometimes when you buy a case, you get one in it. Take your chance on those guys. I'm not going to endorse them whatsoever, but some of them I've heard, you know, good reviews. I cannot endorse. The ones that I use all the time are Corsair. You may pay a bit more extra for the actual product itself, but I know it's going to survive in years to come. Now, the CX range for me has worked well in my budget builds. They've never let me down. EVGA also I've had good recommendations for, but for me, very good. Right, so let's actually consider one for this build then. First off, we're going to knock it down by price. So we're going to look at the cheapest Corsair that we can buy within this price range. Now, as you can see, I've got the Corsair CX 430, and the M at the end means that it's modular. In other words, all the wires that are attached to it I can take out and I can put in. It's very handy if you want to keep your system looking clean. In other words, you don't have to have wires plugged in that aren't being used. It's very easy to use cable management. In other words, you've got a bit more functionality when you're wrapping them around, poking them through different holes in your cases if you've not got a lot of space to work with. So that's a consideration to take into mind. As you can see, the modular and the normal, there's no price difference whatsoever, so it's your specific taste that you go for. I usually go for the modular, to be honest. There are cheaper ones in the Antec's a very good build, like I said, EVGA and all that kind of good stuff. But for this one, I'm going to choose the Corsair CX 430 because I've got confidence in this one, and it's not a bad price. It's 40 quid. So let's add that to our setup. Okay then, so now we have got basically everything that we need now to get our budget build emulation machine working. So the total price up to now is £283. So that's not a bad price at all, to be honest. 283 UK pounds for a system that will play more or less anything is very cheap indeed. Translating that in my head, I reckon we're going to be looking at $425 US. Of course, don't trust my mind. It gets rather carried away. But that is a good price to be going off, to be honest. And in the upcoming series, we will show you how to knock even more money off that. Whether it be by using parts that you've already sourced, parts that you already own, but also looking into the second-hand market. Now, I know there's alarm bells ringing everywhere because second-hand computer parts can be very, well, a rocky road to say the least. But I'm going to be showing you some of the tips and tricks where you can save money and have confidence in the product that you're going to be buying, to a certain level anyway. Another thing that we're going to be looking at is actually carrying on with this series. We're going to be starting this. This is step 1, sourcing all the parts that you need for the computer. Next thing we're going to be doing is looking if we can make any more impact in getting this any more cheaper. After that, we're going to be looking at building an arcade cabinet, a full arcade cabinet. So we're going to be start looking at actual parts that we're going to be needing, the tools, the equipment, the actual cabinet build itself, the artwork, the controls, piecing it all together,
putting all the computer components inside, and all the aspects that you could ever imagine in building a complete PC arcade cabinet from start to finish. So you've got a lovely bit of hardware in your home to entertain not just you but your family. That's what we're going to be looking at. So please guys, help me out here. Give this video, I know it's been a long drawn out one, I've given you a lot of boring website to go through, we've talked a lot of facts and figures, but there's a hell of a lot of stuff to consider when you're doing, buying and getting into this scene. I hope that I've helped at least one person out there, and if anybody's got any ideas, if anybody wants me to build on certain features, if anybody's got the slightest little question, let me know in the comments below guys. I am here to help, and I will consider everything and everyone when it comes to you guys being involved in this scene, because I love this scene. All I want to do is help you. All I want to do is make this scene better for all of us, because it's a great place to be. It's a great place for our families, for me and you, to enjoy what has once been forgotten. So I'm going to leave you here. I've waffled on for far too long today guys. Thank you very much. Please like, please share, please at the utmost subscribe to my channel. There's stuff like this going on all the time, and like I said, this is my new series. So you guys have a good day. Laters.